Hello there. I'm going to make this real quick. This is a video that has nothing but B-roll. So if all you want to do is to pop this up on a second monitor or not even look at the video itself and do something else, that's totally fine. Because after this initial intro part, it's just all going to be random pictures or footage that is somewhat relevant to what I'm going to talk about, but it's nothing that you have to watch 100% or to give 100% of your focus to. Anyways, enjoy the video. I talked about this topic briefly in my Why I Love Prototype Runs and Helping Keyboard Designers video that I recorded a couple of months ago. But to me, there's just something quite poetic about the design process of keyboards. The journey that a lot of the designers have as they join the hobby as a keyboard newbie and they learn the ins and outs about keyboards and the hobby and they finally figure out their preferences. They dream about a project or a keyboard that they want to create, and then they finally make that dream a reality as the keyboard becomes fully realized. There's something awesome about that, and I could go on for hours about it. I've been fortunate enough to be part of a keyboard podcast called the Good Keyboard Friends Podcast. But don't worry, I won't shill that too much in this video. And through the podcast, I've had the opportunity to talk to so many fantastic keyboard enthusiasts. One common discussion point that a lot of them always bring up is how the hobby has slowly evolved from more niche passion projects to what it is like now. Lots of fantastic low-cost keyboards, but fewer and fewer of these passion projects or unique boards being released. Now, let me make myself clear, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. The barrier to entry into the community has never been lower, with boards bringing incredible value at unbelievably good prices. It's just that after listening to many of the designers who have been in the community for many years, I've realized that supporting passion projects may not be as common as back in the day. So, is it just the old adage of not being receptive to change? Well, maybe, but I'd hate for these so-called passion projects to die out, not only because of a lot of designers who are behind these keyboards are people whom I've talked to and have been able to start relationships and friendships with, but because there definitely is still room in the hobby for said boards. This video is not meant to make you feel bad about liking cheaper boards or to change your preferences. It's simply to explain that, for me, supporting keyboard projects aren't necessarily focused on making things as cheap as possible. And it's important to support the passion projects out there. These words are my own. I'm never told of what to say or what I can or cannot say, and I get no benefit from shouting out any of these projects. I am a Canon Keys content partner, but it's not like I get any kickback from Sagittarius extra sales or things like that, if there even are any. I bought the Sagittarius with my own money. I didn't get it set for free, and I'm not paid any sort of rate or payment to talk about Canon Keys projects or boards in general. And please know that these are just my opinions. I'm not saying that they're better than yours or worse than yours. If you're someone that's more interested in the value proposition of boards or don't really care about the story behind keyboards, that's totally fine. No matter what, I appreciate you for taking the time out of your day to watch this video. We all have different views on the keyboard hobby and what we like, but remember that at the end of the day, we're all connected by the love that we have for this hobby and community, regardless of what our specific preferences are. So what is a passion project? Simply put, a keyboard passion project is something that's a tad bit more expensive, may not sell as many units, but it's a project that you can tell that the designer has poured their heart and soul into, versus a more mainstream or value-driven offering. Maybe it's unique or very important to them. It may not necessarily be designed to be a board that will sell thousands of units either. Perhaps it's a more complicated design with intricate curves or lines. Or maybe it's a board made of multiple materials or different materials than aluminum, like brass or copper. Maybe it's also trying something new or unique that we usually don't see in boards. In many situations, it's a board that's a bit pricier than what we generally consider as value propositions, which are usually boards that are $150, $200 or less. Now, this is not to say that the worlds don't overlap and that passion projects can't cost the same as value propositions or passion projects can't sell very well. It's just that it's more of a gamble than a safer design. And it's also probable that the designer doesn't have the capability of a very large company. Think QWERTY keys or having an in-house designer versus a smaller scale designer running their own board by themselves or maybe through one or two vendors. Back in the day, keyboards were very much a niche product. It's still kind of niche, but obviously it's becoming more mainstream as time goes on. And as the idea of designing a keyboard solely to make a profit or to sell a lot via large companies wasn't as prevalent as it is now. Again, nothing wrong with that. It's just how the hobby has evolved. Gone are the days of posting an interest check or group by page and having the individuals that joined being posted in the threads with their payment statuses and their names being publicly visible and things like that. It was a lot more intimate back then, and there were many unique projects and attempts to come up with something new. There are obviously pros and cons to how things were done back then and how things are done today, but that's a topic for another day. But let's get into my 3 whys and let me explain why I love supporting passion projects. Naturally, passion projects can be hit or miss because what a designer loves may not be what the mainstream community loves. Sometimes the boards catch on and they sell a respectable amount of units just because of the uniqueness or because of what the board brings. But at other times, they barely hit MOQ or interest is kind of lukewarm. Maybe they bring something new to the table or something that we haven't seen for a while. Think of the 21XX from Pontus or the newly interest-checked Soleil, the solar-powered TKL from Canon Keys. There are many, many designers who have made their living by creating and selling boards for a very small group of people as well. The private run or prototype run units, like I mentioned in my other video, where the runs occur in each of those designers' discords, making the entire process much more intimate than buying from a vendor. There are also designers who have partnered with vendors in order to decrease the stress and risk from having to handle many boards, but still count as more of a passion project than a mainstream project. The QFRL 100, or ETAR 87 now, the Migra TKL, the K3, for example, these are all boards designed by the Bloody Eyes or James for only about a handful of people. There's something really cool about supporting these small run boards. Maybe these boards will be in a colorway that isn't offered for the public run, or maybe there are design choices that are only for these few units, or a bit of both. While you still have to manage risk and trust the group by runner, there's something really special about getting in on the ground floor of a project, especially since you can really give fantastic feedback to the designer before the public run, if there even is one. For me, it's less about showing off or patting my own ego and more about being able to financially support a designer in order for them to buy prototypes or pre-production units. For example, if they want to buy a prototype, but it costs $500, getting 9 more people to also buy prototype versions could lower the price a bit and also allows the designer to get feedback from said individuals. So it can definitely be worthwhile. And the designer benefits by having beta testers, so to speak. And you benefit by having a unique keyboard or a keyboard that is not slated to come out or even released at all for a public run. I'm a sucker for a good story. Growing up, I've always been a storyteller, and I have always loved listening to others tell their stories. We each have a vast ocean of life experiences and lessons, and I think it's just amazing to hear about someone else's life and why they do what they do or what got them to where they are now. The same goes for keyboards. Sure, there's nothing that states that you have to know the reasoning or concept behind a keyboard before you buy it, but as I've learned throughout these years of being in our fantastic hobby, it's more than just a keyboard, how much it costs, the materials, the mounting style, and so on. It's the story behind the board and how the designer came up with the inspiration to design it. Let's go to the Sagittarius, since it's the featured board of this video, and the board that really has a meaningful story behind it. Please allow me to share with you the Geek Hack thread of the Sagittarius, and I'm going to link this in the description below as well. At first, I had thought that this was just an Ergo keyboard that simply looked amazing, but then I started reading. If you have not had the privilege of interacting with Gondolindrum, or Gondo as we call him, he's a very well-read, intellectual, and beautiful human. As shown by the explanation of the board itself and the sources that are quoted, he actually recently defended his thesis, and now he is a doctor. Dr. Gondo. He's about to become a professor. But then I read about how the Sagittarius was a project that he and his very good friend Tom worked on. It was a collaborative effort that they both spent hundreds, if not thousands of hours on to make as perfect as possible. The fact that the layout of the board was designed to help alleviate issues when typing, not just with hands themselves, but the entire body, and how the project had a lot of science behind it just made the board have so much meaning. And then, in the Geek Hack page, I got to the About Tom section. For those of you that have not read that section, Tom actually passed away. And I'll let you all read the rest of the story on the Geek Hack link that I provided, but that immediately made me feel like the Sagittarius was greater than just some cool looking Ergo keyboard with health benefits. The Sagittarius represents Tom's and Gondo's stories, and also the story of people in the keyboard. Upas from Canon Keys, for example, coming together to make the project happen. Sometimes we are reminded that there is more to a keyboard than just how it looks, feels, or sounds. It can be part of a person's legacy, a reminder of the impact they've made in the world, or a reminder that there's always a story behind an item. The idea that by buying a Sagittarius, it would also support Tom's family due to the proceeds going to them is something that I'm sure is also a deciding factor when getting the board. There's always a story, and whether it's been made public or kept private, it's something that I really think is important to remember when buying a keyboard and supporting passion projects. At the end of the day, it was never really about the keyboard after all. For me, it's about the person or people behind the project. Sure, you are expecting the physical item itself, but for me, it's all about building a relationship with the designer. Do you have to be the best of friends or talk to them every day to buy a keyboard of theirs? Of course not. But let me take you back to the very beginning of this video. Imagine joining the keyboard hobby and being brand new, then meeting someone else who's also a newcomer. You both go through the normal stages of trying to learn anything and everything, making mistakes and learning lessons along the way. And your friendship eventually changes from being good keyboard friends to being good friends thanks to keyboards. And then your friend starts designing. It doesn't have to be financially, but imagine being able to support your friend and their designs. It's all about supporting your friend and doing everything you can for them to be successful, regardless of it being financial or just shouting out their projects. For me, it's no longer a question of, does this item fit my preferences in terms of the keyboard triangle of aesthetics, sound, and feel, or is this a great value proposition? For me, the most important factor when it comes to buying boards is a question of, how can I help support my friend? Or what's the story behind this project? Again, you absolutely do not have to buy every single project that your friend designs or give money to them every single time. Helping by spreading the word about a project, bringing attention to it, or perhaps you have a connection that can be helpful, or even just being able to spend time with your friend and lending your ear and time as you both hang out in voice chats or allowing them to vent and de-stress, it's all very helpful to them and doesn't cost any money. The most valuable commodity we have in life is time. We can never get more of it. And once we use it all up, that's it. So spending your time helping your friend however you can is very precious and impactful. Boards may come and go, but friendships built through being in the keyboard hobby can be long-lasting and allow you to enjoy the hobby even without purchasing things. How many times have you stayed up late or woke up early to chat with a friend that you've met through the keyboard hobby, whether it be about keyboards or non-keyboard topics? You may have met through keyboards, but your friendship can extend past the hobby itself. And what happens when that friend eventually becomes a designer? Or maybe it's the opposite. A designer eventually becomes a friend. You do anything in your power to help them succeed. That is why I love supporting keyboard passion projects, their stories, and sometimes the friendships that you have with them. There are different reasons why we each support passion projects or buy keyboards. Perhaps it is quite simply just to purchase a board. But other times, maybe it's to have a unique keyboard. Maybe it's to make sure the project succeeds. Or because the project is bigger than just a keyboard. Or maybe it's simply just to support a friend. If you're financially able to, again, make sure you're financially responsible. You might even support a project that you had no intention of using. Maybe you buy a board so it hits MOQ, and then you end up giving it away. Or maybe you even buy multiple boards or multiple items just to support the project. I love it. I love how keyboards can become bigger than just the boards themselves, and that the community is absolutely full of fantastic individuals. I love how we can have cheap boards and that the hobby is becoming more accessible. I also love how there are still passion projects out there as well. Consider those passion projects, even if it's just to support them without purchasing. They are the lifeblood of our hobby and what the value proposition projects were built on. Let's do our best to make sure that there's always a space for these unique projects and to support designers and friends. You see a designer that makes something cool, whether they be a friend or not, send them a message or post on the IC or Group By page, telling them what a great job they've done, if that's what you believe. That small show of gratitude or positivity or kindness can really make a designer's day. To be honest, that's how many of my friendships started with all these designers. I found a project that I really liked that they designed, and I reached out to them. I said that this is an awesome project, and even if I don't end up buying it, they've done a great job, and I hope they become successful. You never know what someone's dealing with or going through. Man, a simple act of kindness can really make a big difference. So the next time you see a board or a project or an IC or whatever from a designer that you really like, send them a message. Maybe even buy that project if you're able to financially, or support them in any other way. The stories behind the keyboards, the people themselves, it's all amazing, and it's what makes our hobby special. It's the people in the hobby, right? It's not about buying keyboards themselves. Thanks for watching. I love you all, and catch you next time.